Jake, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Terrible game, isn't it?
I don't know.
It is. I mean, everybody's saying it.
I mean, yeah, everybody's saying a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You think it's terrible?
No.
Okay.
I just had to open with that just because
All right.
everybody says this game is the worst game ever made because it isn't this, it isn't that. Bear in mind, the majority of these people have never played the game, but Jake,
Sure.
we have spent, I think I've 30 plus hours, I've 2 characters maxed out, I've done a fair bit of the end game content. I can't get enough of this, actually so much so that I sustained an injury in my right index finger because of the trigger finger. I woke up one morning and this finger was numb. Because I was playing it that much. Jake, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Is it your favorite looter shooter ever made?
It might be. It might be.
Really? Oh,
It might. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's up there. I mean, like, what am I comparing it to? Right. I'm comparing it to games like the Division. I'm comparing it to Destiny. I'm comparing it to like a lot like Borderlands, maybe, you know. And I think like the things out of those, Borderlands was my favorite.
Yep.
And the thing that like is really getting me here is that it's giving me more of what I like out of Borderlands, but also speaking to what I really like in other games. Like, I really like Spider-Man, for instance, for its traversal mechanics. And here, I feel like I'm getting a Borderlands game that has really fun, creative, expressive traversal. So just in short, and as somebody that is very attached to the DC universe, a lot of that attachment does translate over here. So there's a lot of stuff that it's for somebody that likes these games, this has a lot that I'm already attached to having a really good time with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the word you said there was expressive. And I say this, people will be so annoyed because I always use that word in every single one of my reviews, every single video I ever make, every stream I ever do. But ultimately, my favorite thing of games is how expressive it is. And when it comes to this game, I think they did a really good job because on first glance, everyone's like, oh, why did they make this game a third-person shooter? Every character's just going to feel the same because they're going to have guns. But no, what they did was they basically said, look, how we're going to differentiate characters is through traversal, and you can feel it because if you start with King Shark and you play a lot of him and then you want to swap to Deadshot, the buttons are the same as in, you know, L1 and R1 to do your traversal stuff, but you still have to learn the loop of how to properly move around the place. And then, same way, I mean, Harley Quinn's one, I still haven't gotten a hang of her abilities yet, but then, like, mix that in with what the combat is and how many different abilities they give you, not only with just the characters, but then stuff like the critical hits with shooting people in the leg and absorbing shields. I just feel like Rocksteady did an amazing job with giving you that loop in the Arkham games that made the combat feel so fluid and so smooth. And while I think this game is definitely way more complicated, Rocksteady very clearly understand how to make that 10 or 20 second loop that just hooks you in. And then because of the depth of the builds and the depth of the movement and the different stuff that they add into it, there's just so much to do that, I mean, I haven't had fun like this in a game in I don't know how long. And it's just made all the better because it is a looter shooter, because I love numbers. When all them numbers are popping off and there's 6 different, afflictions on them, and there's a blue thing because you can harvest their shield, then you're getting loot. I'm like, oh, this is Sunset Overdrive mixed with Borderlands, and yeah, brilliant.
I think it's so important to see what the game is doing and not what you think it's supposed to be doing. Yes. There's it is a shooter, but is any of the friction in the game about lining up your shot with the enemy? No. That's not what the game's about. And I understand how some people would see that and go, oh, that's where the challenge is supposed to be. But not at all. Like this game, there can be an enemy miles away. You pull out the sniper rifle, you aim down your sights, you're going to be right on that sucker. Because it's a game about awareness. You know what? Shooting is the method. And you think all of these characters play the same because they're all using guns. But guns are kind of the means to the end. And really the thing you're thinking about is you've got you and you've got the environment. And your brain, the mental stack is, okay, I'm using this environment to block off the snipers that are shooting at me while also getting this guy down here and making sure I line up this ability with that ability and use these abilities in this order to maximize my destruction of these hordes and hordes of enemies that keep growing in strength and number. And none of that is the mechanical input of like aiming down your sight, lining up the shot and shooting, because you're doing that so fast. That is something they give that to you. That is something you're supposed to be able to execute. So there's no execution barrier there. And I think that's a hard thing for people to see, because you have a game with guns, and every game with guns is that execution barrier. Is that, can you line it up and make the shot? But that's not what's going on here. It's a different kind of game. It's an action game that uses guns.
Yeah, that is a very insightful. This is why I bring Jake onto the channel, by the way. He has those insights that he just words things a certain way that just makes it so easy to understand. But yeah, I don't know. I think this game just has a special, and we'll get into later, sort of mission variety and where we think this game is going, and will it last, and will the end game loop kind of keep us going. But again, I think it just boils everything down and understands what it is, and doesn't try to be anything else. And I think that was a problem with the marketing of this game, because everybody was like, well, this game isn't an Arkham game. It's like, yeah, but it's not trying to be an Arkham game. You're comparing a looter shooter to a third-person cinematic adventure. And I think that's where I know, of course, we're going to have to jump into the discourse around this game, but I think that's where it stems from. And then it just got worse as things went on, with the different things that kind of cropped up with the review codes not being let out. And yeah, I don't know. When it comes to games, I want to judge the game firstly on what it is, and not what I want it to be or what people think it should have been. But also, you just want to give them a fair shot. Now, obviously, I'm in, I guess, sort of not a privileged position, because I don't always get codes, but I do get codes, which helps. But like, my money was put on the line playing this game because I wanted to figure out like what it was and is it actually good. And I think the problem is that a lot of people saw people talking about this game who had never played the game and just made their mind up there. And I think from day one, this game was almost like doomed. I know I used that in my title of the video, but yeah, what do you think about that, Jake? Like this, go off.
Okay, so here's my take about what this game is versus what people wanted it to be, what it's not, right? Is that I think that first I kind of want to talk about media bias, because I think that is present here. And I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, the game journalists, they have it out for this game. I don't think that's what's going on. But you and I have both been in the position before where we get a code in advance and you need to get a review out by the embargo, by a certain date. And I think that structure for reviewing games, it means that your priorities are different from maybe like a YouTuber who's going to cover the game over a long period of time. So what a reviewer is looking at is from the start of the game to the end of the game, that A to B, this window, and giving that game a score. And I think that the games that are typically critically best received are narrative-focused, oftentimes third-person action games with a strong emphasis on perspective, on inhabiting a character, seeing that arc, going on a ride from start to finish, walking down a hallway. And I think you see that in, of course, the Batman Arkham series. But then you see that in things like The Last of Us and Uncharted and like the games that get the big scores and have those characters attached to them. Superhero games. We've been told what makes a good superhero game. I'll tell you, you want to feel like Batman. You want to feel like Spider-Man. And that's not what's going on here. This is a different kind of game with a different kind of design philosophy. They're making a fun looter shooter first. And they're saying, how do we make this game the best game it can be? And they're using the DC property because that's what they have access to. So you have a character like Captain Boomerang who moves in a way that Captain Boomerang, and I know he has. If you're a huge DC Comics nerd, you know that there is a version of Captain Boomerang with super speed, but most people don't know that. And if Captain Boomerang moves in a way that not a lot of people imagine him to move. And when you play a Captain Boomerang game, you expect to use boomerangs more than you do here. Here you're using guns. And why is that? It's because they made a cool combat kit and then put Captain Boomerang on top of it. And that's I think the game that they're going for here, and it's a different kind of game. And I think because of that, you have a lot of these traditional games media outlets coming to it and saying, this isn't the thing it's supposed to be. This isn't that one arc, that the ride that we are all on. And you see things happen, and I think this is so interesting, where they brush up against what the friction of the game actually is. So like previews come out for Suicide Squad, right? And everybody says this boss fight is really hard. This boss fight is not fun. It doesn't make any sense. And the reason they're saying that is because part of this game, like a fighting game where you do the same thing every time, is upping your skills that are in not the game doesn't play itself for you. It's not putting you on the ride. It's saying you need to interact with these systems and figure it out. So, you know, there's no early review copies for this game. People are figuring it out live. The first day of impressions are really bad because people aren't good at the game and they don't get it and they haven't had the time to get good at it. And whereas a game like Spider-Man wants you to be good at the game immediately. It wants the traversal to be easy. It wants the combat to tell you exactly how to play it. So it's such a different kind of game. And what I've been telling people is it's the difference between a movie about baseball and a baseball game. You might not want to play baseball. You might not want to do the same thing every time, but there are people that do, and there are people that love it, and they get really into it, and they want to know every strategic thing and everything that's going on in the game. But then there are some people that don't like baseball, but they would love to watch a movie about it. That takes you through a very specific up and down and walks you through that for you. And I think that's the difference between these two games. And that's how you know, like, there are all of these people who are going, this is a superhero game. I should want to like this. And I don't. And I go, that's because you don't like the looter shooter. That's because you don't like this kind of game. And I understand how that happens. You have Rocksteady, you have the superhero thing, you have all this stuff telling you, I've been trained to think this is the kind of game I'm getting, but it's not. It's a completely different kind of game. So,
yeah, just touching on the sort of how this game makes you, like, wants you to learn. It's like you take something as simple as swinging in Spider-Man or swinging as Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't put much time into Harley Quinn, but I don't know how to use her traversal kit. Her traversal kit is definitely the most, the hardest to understand and get around. But like, if you get into Spider-Man 1, 2, or Miles Morales, and instantly you are like, oh, I feel like Spider-Man again to use that. But like, you're just swinging through. And even you said it when we reviewed Spider-Man 2, was like how you turned off the swing assist because it kind of gives you that small bit more skill and a bit more involvement in the gameplay loop. And I think another thing is that there's a certain level, I think, when it comes to these superhero games specifically, because they are so mass appeal, they're just made for everybody, is that they boil them down to be quite basic. Where, like, the Arkham games are easy to understand, and there's not really much going on in the background. The same with the Spider-Man games. But here, there is not only a lot of mechanics, and I think they do a pretty good job at onboarding you. Like, they don't overload you. Like, they give you the different afflictions through 6 different Poison Ivy missions. It's not all just thrown on you at once. Yeah. But I think the onboarding definitely could have been done slightly better, I think. But when you get into the end game of this game, I think that's where it starts to really shine, because to your average person, since they're used to superhero games being so basic and sort of easy to understand, and when you are bombarded with all these different mechanics and all of these numbers, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of text to this whole game. It does become overwhelming too. I don't want to say your average player, but to somebody who wants to play an average or a typical superhero game. But then when you get into the end game, and I know we're jumping all over the place and we haven't even touched on the story, but we will eventually. But then when you get into the end game of this game, there is so much depth to this. Because even I was looking at the skill tree, I was like, they kind of, every couple of skills you can choose between 1 or 2 different ones. But most of the time you have one option or maybe 2 options. So it doesn't actually feel like there's much going on there. But I have started to play Deadshot a lot, okay? And for anybody that doesn't know, the end game basically happens. You kill the Justice League. You then take on, or then the end game starts, then you take on Brainiac, and then like the real end game starts. And then you unlock the Bane gear. And this Bane gear is magical because there are 3 tiers of Bane gear, and there are Bane's Infamy, Bane's Wrath, and Bane's something else. But each of them tiers of gear have different bonuses for each tier. So you have to have 3 of, say, Bane's Wrath to get this bonus, or 3 of Bane's Infamy to get this bonus. Or you can have 3 of each, and then you get all of the bonuses. And I have built this Deadshot, let me tell you. This Grenadier Deadshot, where I inflict craze on people, which is sort of like the poison ability with my melee. And then, if I remember correctly, that means that they take 100% more grenade damage. But also, when I get kills on people that are afflicted with craze, they have a higher chance of dropping grenades. So once I get into that loop, I almost have unlimited grenades where I can just decimate everybody. And that is what you want the end game of a looter shooter or action RPG to be, where you feel powerful. And I think Rocksteady, when developers move from genre to genre, okay? You kind of expect some things to get lost in translation, and maybe like, oh, they did that well, but they didn't do this well, and on the second game, they'll improve upon it. And there's a couple of developers that have done this. I mean, I don't really like Killzone, and I also don't really like Horizon, but Guerrilla are probably the best example of like a complete genre switch and also doing it really well. But here, I think Rocksteady, I'm not going to say they perfected it, but Rocksteady just made an absolutely amazing looter shooter, and that's a problem with all this crap surrounding this game. And I know people, I've been called a shill for Rocksteady and Warner Brothers in my YouTube comments. I don't care, I'm not. But like, that's the problem. All of this crap is it's being caught up in all this crap, and we can't just sit there and commend the developer for completely switching genre, making a genre of game that more often than not fails, because a lot of live services fail. A lot of action RPGs come out and they're like, this is just boring. But then they just made a good action RPG. They made an amazing action RPG.
Well, and let's dig into this a little bit, because I think this is worth discussing, that there is a canon of these kind of live service looter shooter games at this point that all have this like stench on them. Yeah. And they all launch in the same state. It's like, man, this could maybe be a good game if you fixed all of this stuff. And then what happens is that they all come out and they say, hey, we're going to have this content pipeline, new content's coming out, but then they need to spend 6 months fixing all the stuff that's wrong with the base game, and they never even really get the chance to go through that content pipeline. And I think something that makes Suicide Squad different is that it's not broken in the slightest. It is like, there's a lot of, it's got great bones in a way that these games never do. Even with like little stuff, like being able to, the talent tree that you were talking about, being able to have a talent tree and pick out gear and save all of that to a build in the game and switch to that build whenever you want. They have that in at launch. A thing that these games never have at launch. And in the looter shooter genre, there are so many things that this game does so well. I love that they made afflictions an active ability rather than just, here's a % chance of something happening. Like, if you have a boomerang and it has the fire ability, you hold down the melee button and it activates and it does the fire thing. It does the ice thing, does the electric thing, whatever it is. And that means that I'm being expressive. That means that I am making an actual choice in the game, and it's not just trying to up my chances of this thing happening. So I'm thinking about what my options are in the moment. It's giving me another card to play. And there's so much stuff like that. You were talking about the Bane gear, and it's not just that this is gear that has Bane's name on it. Like, when you activate the game, the Bane perk, like this music starts playing and you're like, oh, it's coming down now. And like this, all these like really cool Bane effects start happening. Your character has like this weird green hologram mask on them all of a sudden. And that is how you lean into the IP to make something memorable. So there's this gameplay thing that is drastically changing how you play the game. And they're using the IP to make that kind of like a narrative moment in your story of playing the game, of going, oh, I feel like this big thing is happening. happening right now. And that's powerful. That is really cool and really well done. And it makes me excited for the future of high tier loot, of the different villains and like what their effects are going to be. And like, it's so easy for me to remember what the Bane gear does because they tie it to that character. Yeah. That is awesome. That is great stuff.
Yeah, and another quick thing to touch on there is it's not only that the Bane gear stacks with itself, there's also synergies between the different villains. So I believe if you have Two-Face gear and Bane gear, they get a bonus as well, depending on how many you have that clip together. And again, as you said, it's just another way to kind of make it a bit more memorable. And now when I have a shotgun called, it's Two Faces something, okay? And it has an alternate firing. So not only is that shotgun really powerful, it has an alternate fire mode, which not very many weapons in the game do have, so that makes it memorable. But then also on the stat sheet, which is what I love looking at, I can see it's like this. It has a little symbol. It's like this synergizes with the Bane gear, and now you get this. And even just to touch on the live service stuff they did, like the clans work. We're in
the clans
clan.
Work.
Everybody's working towards a collective goal of there's different clan challenges, and then at the end of it, if we complete X amount of challenges and get X amount of clan XP, we get more loot at the end. And then you can send taunts to one another, which is what we've been doing.
Awesome.
Every now and again, I log on and there's Captain Boomerang. Jake knows it's sticking the middle finger up to me. And yeah, I don't know. And another thing that we haven't even mentioned is that I have a level 30 Deadshot, a level 30 King Shark in my party, and I want them in my party. I don't have a level 30 Boomerang in my party, but Jake does. And since Jake is in my clan, I can import, like, at any time I can choose to have his character in my party. And it's like, and then also Jake gets rewards for that. And
Genius.
I understand, I understand, like, this game, so it looks unbelievable, despite what Twitter would have you believe.
Right.
It runs like, even when all of this crap is going on, this game holds a constant FPS, which is insane. And yes, there were some server issues at the start, obviously but unfortunately, I think that is just a part of making an online game. Have you ever seen an online game come out and have servers that work day one? I haven't. I'm not trying to excuse it, but I'm just saying I think that is just something that happens across.
And I also think it's worth saying, Adam, that since like the North American launch, since like I've been able to play it, like I have not had any issues.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I've been able to connect every single time I've tried. Now, my friend David has had like 2 disconnects.
Okay.
But, I mean, I don't know. I think, again, you can kind of just get lucky or unlucky depending on what time you're playing at. But, like, I don't know. This game, like, another thing, sorry, this is more the discourse crap, is that, like, I saw some guy put up a picture on Twitter comparing Suicide Squad to Arkham Knight and, like, this game's from 2024 and this game's from 2015. But he was looking outside of the map. So he wasn't looking in towards where everything is rendered. He was looking out to an area that you can't go to. And one of the developers called him out on it. He showed the map position and he showed the cone of vision of where he was looking. And he got caught. And I was like, I don't know. Like, where does that stuff come from?
Yeah, people are crazy. It's
just crazy.
Yeah. And I gotta say, like, visually, as like a big Superman fan, like, I think being in Metropolis is cool. They've gone for this like Art Deco 50s thing, and like it's so neat to me that you've got that like giant Brainiac ship and those like tentacles are moving the whole time and they're like doing stuff.
Yeah, they're like spawning enemies and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know. It's the stuff comparing it to Arkham Knight, I just find I find to be like a little laughable, just because like obviously that game was, you know, it looked the same the entire time, whereas this game has an active weather system, day, night, the whole 9, whatever. And Arkham Knight was 30 frames per second. And I know, like, at the end of the day, none of that technical stuff really matters. It's like, how does it look? And I think some people are always going to prefer the look of something like Arkham Knight. But when we compare these games, I feel like we forget that Arkham Knight, moving Batman around on the control stick, awful.
Yeah, it was never good. Never
and
good.
I love those games. I'm a huge fan of those games.
Me too.
But just him walking around and like holding X to like run, and you're like, oh, I kind of missed where I wanted to go, whatever. And now in this game, you have the same movement, but it feels amazing. And I tip of the cap. because I feel like that there were a lot of things that could have been not quite as good as they are in this game, but I think that they really work. So yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about this more when we get into the story section, I guess. But there's some,
because I just want to touch on this sort of movement what you said there. It's like, but again, with Arkham, I only played Arkham, like the Arkham trilogy, just before Christmas, so they're fresh in my mind. Obviously, we played Spider-Man 2 when it came out. But one thing that is leveled at pretty much every single one of them superhero games is like, it's fun to fly around as Batman and use the grappling hook and all that. It's fun to swing around as Spider-Man. But once you sort of get into the like minute movements, it just doesn't feel right. It never does in either of them games, and they really did. I don't know. It's like people are like saying Rocksteady have lost it. I know obviously this is Twitter discourse, so it's not exactly real. It's a very small minority being very vocal, but like, I just think from an objective quality standpoint, if you want to put it in that terms, this game is up there with the rest of Rocksteady stuff. And that's, I think, where we move into the story, which is another reason why I brought Jake on, because I'm not a superhero man. I know nothing. I thought Deadshot and Deathstroke were the same people. I was calling King Shark Big Shark on my stream.
Dude, I love Big Shark. That rules.
I don't understand superheroes, but all I want to say before I give the floor to Jake is the performances in this game, unbelievable. The facial capture is some of the best I've ever seen. There are very few studios who can rival Naughty Dog and Rockstar in making characters that just look and act real. And Rocksteady, I don't know, I would not have ever thought I would have said this. I know Rocksteady are very high quality, but I would never have said this. Rocksteady have made facial animations that are just as good as Rockstar and Naughty Dog. That is all I would say. I really like the story. The Batman section, really cool. The part where Big Shark turns into the Green Lantern and becomes a giant green fish. Class. Jake, story. You are the man who understands. You are a DC nerd. You know all of this crap.
I think it's worth noting that I'm also a professional writer and story editor. So I'm not just a crazy person. You know what I mean? But yeah, let's talk about the story, because I think the story is, if I was going to say between the story and the gameplay, I think I'm more critical of the story than I am the gameplay. I think I like the gameplay more than the story. And what that comes down to for me is that I think all of the characters are rendered well. I think they are who you think they are supposed to be, and they talk like you think they're supposed to be. To talk. The problem is, for me, I don't think the story is about anything. And I think it sometimes throws these little flags in the air to be like, no, this is what the story's about. But it doesn't properly scaffold those things. So you never have like this moment of catharsis. So Adam, I assume we're doing full spoilers for this. I can just get into it.
Yes, I will put a disclaimer at the start of the video. Yes. Okay,
great. Because I just want to talk about arc for a second. I want to talk about character arc, and this game does something where 70% of the way through it, the members of the squad have this moment where they all kind of like run up, jump to each other, and high five. And it's this moment in the game that I think is supposed to signal to the player, look, these people who weren't really working well together before, now they are. And that's why they will be victorious, because they have come together and they have become a team. This is something we've seen in many movies. This is nothing new. But the problem is that from the beginning of the game to the end, they're working just as well as a team the whole time. So that is not what I would say. It's not dramatized in a way that is meaningful. So I keep thinking about this. When the game starts, we would call this in media res. You get a little chunk from the middle of the story, and then we catch up to that later. So you play from the middle of the story first, and that's the tutorial. And I think that the game does this because they want you to get a taste of every character, so you kind of know where they're going, so you can make an informed decision about who you want to main, maybe. But I think the game does a good job encouraging you to switch it up, so I don't think it needs this. But could you imagine, in a game all about beating the Suicide Squad, or beating the Justice League, rather, being the Suicide Squad and beating the Justice League. It's a David versus Goliath story, right? And the main question of the game is, how can these losers beat these huge, big, massive, unstoppable superheroes? That is the dramatic question of the game. Could you imagine if this game started every character's tutorial section was them before they got their traversal ability on their own doing a crime and getting caught by their rival Justice League member, thrown into Arkham before they become a team. And what you do there is you have Captain Boomerang. He's robbing a bank. He's jumping. He's sliding around. He's shooting people. And then the Flash comes, grabs him. You have Harley Quinn doing something. Batman comes, grabs her. You have Deadshot doing something. Green Lantern comes, grabs him. You know, Superman grabs King Shark. And what you do there is that you show alone these people had no chance against the Justice League. They, on their own, they were these pitiful losers. The Justice League completely wiped them. But now you have them get recruited out of Arkham, all as individuals. You give them their traversal abilities, and you have that moment where you go, oh, I'm powered up a little. This is different from what I played in the beginning. Now now I think I might have a little bit of a shot at beating the Justice League. And now that you're acting as a team, now you face those same Justice League members again, and you get to see them having turned from heroes into villains. And it's like, okay, now we're dramatizing us coming together as a team. And the fact that the game doesn't do this is so weird to me. And what happens is you have moments like when you kill Batman, right? And you have Harley Quinn and she gives her little speech and she kills Batman. That moment doesn't mean anything beyond Harley Quinn killing Batman. There's no meaning in the greater story. It's just exactly what you see in that scene. And I think it's because when I'm teaching classes, you would say, you think you have an Act 3 problem, but actually you have an Act 1 problem, is that it doesn't set anything up. And because we don't set anything up, these later moments, they don't really mean anything. Like, it's crazy to me, Adam, that we have this great moment at the beginning where you're walking through the Batman Museum, and one by one, Batman is picking off every character in the Suicide Squad. And the reason why I think that's great is because it forces you to be individuals. And individually, Batman is able to take you down one by one. And I go, oh, I get what they're doing, because later in the game, we're going to be a whole team, and we're going to beat Batman because we're not individuals. But then we go to fight Batman again, and it has us do something as individuals. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, damn, guys, like you set yourself up and you didn't hit the punchline. So ultimately, that's my issue with the story in this game, is that I think while on a surface level, everything is really good. Like, everything sounds and looks and is the way you think it's going to be, but there's no teeth to it. There's no like moment set up so that when that moment happens, everybody goes, oh, I get the Suicide Squad now. I get it. I see it. Yeah, that never happens. And so for that reason, I think it needed another pass in the story. How was that for you, listening to this whole thing?
Well, I think the thing about the act, you have an Act 1 problem, not an Act 3 problem.
Yeah.
Could you just, now I know there's probably, well, I'm not sure if this would be a cop-out, but could you just say, could like Rocksteady turn around and say, well, I mean, Harley Quinn, it was in Arkham City Asylum, and was she in Night?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, well, if you played the other games, then that moment, and I know you have, then that moment would have resonated a bit more, because we have been through 3 games where Harley Quinn was constantly like just getting absolutely destroyed by Batman. Like in Arkham City, she walks up to you in the church, and you literally just punch her, and then she's gone. Like, could they not come back and say that?
I think what I would say to them is I would say, you're telling me why this is a moment for Batman in the context of Batman games. I need to know why this is a moment for Harley Quinn in the context of the Suicide Squad. What is different about Harley Quinn from those games to this game that let her beat Batman? You need to dramatize that. What is the active change? Okay. Not the passive one. Yeah. Not something that happened to her. Something that she did that made her now able to beat Batman. And I don't think that they flag that well enough. And I think that you can see in the discourse, Adam, most people talk about, is this scene disrespectful to Batman? Because everybody is making that scene about what does this scene mean for Batman, which I think proves my point in that they needed to make the scene be, what does this mean for Harley Quinn? Yeah.
Yeah, no, but sounds, again, when it comes to story, I'm trying to get better, but in most cases, especially with superhero games, because to me superhero stories are the very archetypal stories.
Yeah, definitely.
I personally like that Batman moment.
Yeah.
Out of one thing and one thing only, is that, yeah, I'm sure, someone as sophisticated, but more sophisticated than me, like you, could critique it. But it's similar, and I'm going to spoil The Last of Us Part 2. Last of Us Part 2, spoiler warning, everybody, please click off. It's similar to when they killed Joel, where I think, firstly, Naughty Dog handled it better than what Rocksteady did, but it shows that they're not afraid, which is one thing that I like. I like when they're ballsy with it. And I also kind of like that it was almost a nothing interaction as well.
I like what you're identifying here.
Yeah.
And I think here's the key difference between us. I think my particular brand of brainworms is that I see stories as a continuum.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of people maybe digest stories in moments. And my question to you would be, does anything in the game outside, if I showed you that cutscene with Batman before you played the game, and then I gave you the game and had you play through the whole game and get to that cutscene with Batman, does anything change between having the context of the whole game before or just versus just watching that scene on its own?
Yeah, no, nothing changes.
See, isn't that interesting? Yeah. Actually, and that to me is the story not doing its job.
Yeah, no, I think you really hit the nail on the head there with me, particularly in stories and how I consume media, full stop. Is that I have these, like you particularly with sort of DC and superhero stuff. I know you're really into that. And my friend David is really big into Batman, and he's really big into different things. Like, I'm really big into Lord of the Rings. But I'm not a Lord of the Rings nut. And I'm not one of them people that are very almost protective of the IP that I like. And I'm not talking about as in a very, I'm going to get defensive if they do something I don't like. But that's just not how I consume media. I consume every piece of media, regardless of where it's from, as an individual thing. And it's like, I always use this analogy, okay? So if you really get into something, like, say I'm going to use coffee as example because that's something that I do. Like, I've really expensive espresso machine, grinder, I've V60s, I've French presses, I've everything. So when you get really big into something like coffee, your maximum enjoyment will increase. But then also it means that when you have a shit cup of coffee from like an espresso pod or something, you're like, I can't drink that. But the ceiling is a lot higher, but it also means that you can't have anything below this bar. Whereas when it comes to media, even my favorite stuff, like Lord of the Rings, I still don't consume media at that level. I'm more in the middle, where I have a general rough enjoyment regardless of what it is, and I never go beyond that point where something could be ruined because, this doesn't make sense because actually in the lore, this doesn't work. And I'd never, I wouldn't begrudge anybody for consuming media the way, say, you would with this DC stuff. I think it's great, but that's just not what I do. So when it comes to, as I said, with the story, like the Batman thing, I just love that they just said, do you know what? We understand this is Batman, and we're just going to shoot him.
Yeah.
And like the Batman part where, you're being hunted, the actual part where you fight him, I enjoyed that moment just because I think it gave you a small bit more into the sort of backstory of the characters, a backstory that I don't really know much of.
Yeah.
Where like Harley Quinn, you could hear her, like the little monologue where she's like, they all think you're crazy and, you're not good by yourself. And in that moment, I enjoyed that. And then the boss fight afterwards was really cool. Like the big, what is he, like Nightmare Batman, or what's he called?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be a little bit of that, but also like the demon bat that's at the end of Arkham Knight,
Yeah, that guy, yeah. So, and I just like that as a moment.
Me too.
Rather than an overarching plot thing.
And I don't want to undersell that because I think that that's valuable. I think that the fact that they are able to hit the tenor that rings true to these characters and places is important because a lot of people don't hit that tenor. And like, I even think something like Marvel's Avengers comes out and there is a lot of like, this is like a little too similar to the movies, or like not, but a little off, and it hits in a weird chord. Whereas this does not hit that. And I think this, it's funny, like a Flash movie just came out and nobody's out here being like, oh, there's something weird going on between this Flash and that Flash movie. Like, I don't know. They're able to kind of carve out their own niche, which I do think is important. But a little storytelling thing. I think that this is so like, listen, is this my pitch for Rocksteady to reach out and just let me do a pass on whatever they're doing next? Maybe. But like, there's some little stuff here, Adam, that I just think is important. And my word of the day is dramatization. And I think that you have a boss fight like Superman that I've seen a lot of online discourse about being like, I hate that he doesn't just like run up and kill you. Like he's using long ranged attacks the whole fight. He's shooting you with his beams. He's using icicles. He's like trying to hit you with a giant bat of cement. And I understand those complaints, but I actually don't think that they are complaints with the boss fight. I think that they're complaints with the dramatization of the moment. Because all you had to do, and I don't know why they didn't do this, is when the squad goes to fight Superman, they're covered in gold kryptonite, right? And we understand as the player that the gold kryptonite is what lets us hurt Superman. But in the cutscene, why not have a moment where Superman super speeds up to one of your characters, grabs them, and goes, oh, shoot. Oh, my God. I can't touch you. You've got this gold kryptonite. I've got it. Okay. And then he starts doing ranged attacks. And then the boss fight is the same, and I think a lot less people have a problem with it. Same thing with the frickin' Flash. Why not have the Flash go try to grab Captain Boomerang, and Captain Boomerang goes, oh, I've actually got the Speed Force gauntlet, and you can't touch me, dude. And like you have that little moment where he's like, oh, you can't touch me, you can't. And then it's like, okay, now this Flash boss fight makes a little bit more sense. And this is storytelling. People think it's the gameplay, and they think it's the live service game, and they think it's all this stuff. But I really think it's the scaffolding. It's how you set this stuff up that like is so important in how your players react to something. And I just like just little tiny tweaks could have made this so much better. I really feel that. Yeah.
I've never heard of scaffolding when talking
narrative
about
scaffolding.
Story.
Yeah. It's important. It's
Yeah.
Everything I've ever learned about writing and everything I've ever taught is all about building to the moment of transcendence is what you call it. And I think in this game, the moment of transcendence is supposed to be when Harley Quinn kills Batman. And the idea is that you plant all of this stuff in the mind of your reader, your viewer, your gamer, and it's what is the character missing? What is the thing that they need in their life? And you build up the whole movie, whatever it is, to that moment, and you go, oh my God, this is it. This is what they were missing. And you see this like in a lot of animated movies. It's like really kind of heavy-handed that's the structure. So they're really good for studying. But yeah, I just wish there was a little bit more of that attention for me and my tastes in stories. Yeah. But I still, for all the reasons we said, I still like it a lot. This is how I would have personally gone in to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's good that we are two like literally complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Not only in how we want our stories, but also our history with the DC like the DC universe in general. Like my history is I played Batman: The Rise of Shinzu on the PS2. It was like this beat 'em up, and apparently it's a terrible game, but I loved it. And then I really got into DC Universe Online. And I've played the Arkham games, and that's literally it. I've seen the Nolan Batman films, and that's basically it. I've never watched any cartoons, but I think just before we wrap this up, we'd obviously have to talk about the future of this game. So, one thing I think from an actual gameplay perspective, from people who've played it, I think the main criticism is that there needs to be either A, more locations, or B, more mission variety. One of the two. I think if you are doing these same missions, because you basically have like 3 types of missions that you do. You do one where you have to collect shards by killing enemies and deposit them. You have to do one where you defend a truck that's on like a fixed path. And then you also have one where you have to go and protect Poison Ivy's plants. Am I missing any other?
There's like the horde mode thing at the end.
Oh yeah. That's it. That's like the super end game stuff. So you have like,
and then there's like the vehicle thing with Gizmo.
Oh yeah. But I'm talking about more about like the stuff you do in the end game, not. So I think if you had say because Gotham is going to be the next area or Arkham even. Yes.
So first, we know that the Joker is coming.
Yeah.
And in theory, he will be bringing like a Jokerized version of Metropolis. So that'll be I think, a slice that's coming. But we do know that in the future, there will be like a completely new map that is like Gotham and Arkham and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I think I'm okay with these sort of, 4 or 5 different types of missions because the gameplay loop is so fun and I enjoy getting the loop or the loot. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you fought Terramorphosis, the guy from Borderlands 2, the raid boss. I fought him hundreds of times. He was the only raid boss in Borderlands 2 for ages, and I had a fun time just because I like Borderlands. And yeah, I think that, like, going forward, one thing again is that the Joker's coming out. When did I say? Start of March?
March, yeah.
Yeah. Like that is how you do these types of games.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier where, we need to fix this for 6 months, and then 6 months after that, we get the first content update. And that's why a lot of games, because a lot of people have very short memories. I had people in my comments saying, Destiny 2 was great at launch, and look, it was like, what? The game was like, yeah, it was fun. Again, with Suicide Squad, it had that base loop that was really fun, and then eventually with years of content updates they built upon it. Now Destiny 2 is one of the best live service games ever made. And yeah, I think that's all this game is missing right now, because I can see myself getting all the characters leveled to level 30. I can see myself doing those endless missions, which I find very fun, and getting the Bane loot, but then after that I'd be kind of done with it, and I think I'll go for the platinum as well. But then, just as I'm done with that, because that'll probably take me a couple of weeks, then the Joker stuff is coming out. So I think that's how you do it. And they said all of these next 4 content updates will be out within 12 months.
Yep.
Which means after that, you'll probably get one every, 2.5, 2 months or whatever, and then Bob's your uncle.
Yeah. I think that they will be able to stick to it. My impression of what's going on is that they had a lot of time to kind of work on this post-launch content already. It would not surprise me if Joker was like way beyond, all this stuff is way beyond done already, and it's just like a timing thing, which I think is really cool. And I also think it's worthwhile that while there are a lot of criticisms of the game out there right now, there is nothing, I have not at least seen stuff like that people are demanding be fixed or patched in that way. That it's like, this element of the game needs to be completely retuned. I think the fact that they launched without gear score on weapons was really smart, and I think is going to help them out a lot in the long run. So the fact that we can just focus on the next content that's coming, I think is nice. I also think it'll be nice in the future when we kind of start to drop the haters and you start to lose the discourse, because right now it's like a sport to dunk on this game. Even if you haven't played it, most people probably haven't. And I think like as you go further, you get these new content drops, and it's for the people actually playing the game. Yeah. And I think that'll be really nice too, and might help this game start to get a good word of mouth going, and maybe even like I could totally see the narrative on this game completely switching by like fall of this year. Maybe some big content update comes out. We're going to Gotham. We've got Deathstroke in the game now. There's these new characters, all these new mission types, and everybody goes, hey, I think maybe this game's actually good. Like, I could totally see that for this game.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and
assuming the content updates are good. But
yeah. I'm not that concerned about the mission types personally, because I feel like at the end of the day, no matter what the mission type is, you're doing the same thing. And I'm okay with that. I know that that's tough for a lot of people, especially people who want kind of that more linear experience where a game takes you through up and downs. But I'm somebody that like plays fighting games and is very used to doing the same thing every time. And the systems here are enough for me to still have fun while doing that. My one suggestion for future content would be, I think it would get them a lot of goodwill if they made levels. Right now, there are no levels. There are no levels in this game. There are environments in which you do missions. There, in Destiny, if you do a strike, you go down corridors, you start somewhere, you finish somewhere else. You start a mission here, you end with a boss fight. That does not exist in this game, and I find that to be very weird. So because I think that might be one of Rocksteady's strengths too. Like anytime in the game where we're brought through like a little environment, it's such a moment. When you go through the Daily Planet, you're like, oh, this is memorable and cool. When you go through the Batcave or the bank even, just going in the bank and being like, whoa, Batman, did stuff in this bank. It's like cool to see. So if they could do, right now they have this system with the Elseworlds, which I think is really smart, and it lets them create these maps however they want with whatever they want in them. If they could do something like this, where you either go up to environments in Metropolis and that starts like a level, or you go into an Elseworld and like you have to get from one place to the next and it is a little bit more linear, I think that would be great. Also, and this is a big swing, I think a lot of people would react negatively to this. I think it would be cool. Interior missions that take away your traversal power. You have to rely on sliding, bouncing, and wall bouncing. You have to do all those things that a lot of players are probably ignoring. So it gets you good at those, but it lets you do a mission in a more enclosed environment, changing the way that you play a little bit. I think that would really strongly vary how you think about the game and like what you're able to do in it. So you don't have to do a ton of these, but just a few of them. Like, man, I think that it might help people who want that more specific experience. I would look into it. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. It definitely would be something to look into, but it would also be a ballsy move. I think that could blow up in your face.
Yeah,
where
100%.
You make these missions where you're like, this just doesn't feel right. Like, you've given me all those moves and now I can't use them. I do like when games generally do that, as in they take away stuff, they'll take away powers, or they'll take away a weapon, and it's like, now you have to really think. Like, you had all this stuff in your brain about how to play the game, and now you don't, so now you have to rethink how you play it, and I do like that, but yeah, I don't know, I think as live service games go, it's a pretty smooth game.
Listen, I'm so happy, Adam, to just keep doing these missions and raising my whatever that score is called.
Yeah, the infamy score or whatever.
Yeah, and I like the leaderboards, and I like how like there's a degree to which everything in this game is so easy for me to digest in a way where I've played games before, and because like something like The Division, which is like a military shooter, there's nothing for me to like get attached to and remember. I'm just like trying to remember all of these new disparate terms, but like you get the Bizarro gun, and in this game when you reload a weapon you press square, and then a little bar fills up, and then towards the end of that bar you press square again to do the active reload. But Bizarro, his whole thing is that everything on his world is backwards, so rather than that bar showing up at the end, you actually have to press it. It's backwards. It shows up at the beginning.
I was wondering why that shotgun was like that.
Yeah, so you have to press it fast instead of waiting. And the fact that is tied to Bizarro makes me go, well, I'll never forget that. Yeah. And then as opposed to if it was tied to some weapon manufacturer, I would never remember it. So
you don't remember Dahl and TDR and Jacobs from Borderlands, Jake? Come on. They're the most memorable things in the world. Well, actually, no, in Borderlands they did eventually make them a bit because they made Jacob Wainwright one of the best characters in the game. In the Hammer
and that one's
DLC.
there's no elements on that. It just like shoots fast and stuff, right? That's like, see, I remember. Yeah, I remember.
But it's hard. They were the best class of guns. So usually we end these with some rapid fire questions. I haven't written any down. I have two in my head, and I'm just gonna go. Jake, who's your favorite character?
Captain Boomerang, baby, zipping around. Adam, love it. So fun.
I don't like him.
Are you using the dash? Are you using the...
Yeah. But there's just something about when you throw the boomerang and there's like a delay. I know obviously it makes sense because the boomerang has to go a distance before you can get there. But I want to be able to throw it and instantly go to it.
Can I tell you why I like it?
Why?
I think that there's design language where the boomerang, the weapons that Captain Boomerang uses are the sniper, the shotgun, and the SMG. And these are all about bursts. It's all about bursts and then breaks. And I think that the movement is a burst and a break. It's you have that break and then and I think that that's like them synergizing how the character plays and how the character moves. I think it really works. And I like that moment to think. I like that moment of you throw the boomerang and then you go, okay. I don't know. I like it.
No, my brain, I have a monkey brain. My brain needs all the engagement at all times. That's why I love playing Shark, because you're just like, jump up in the air, zip, down, boom, just a big minigun. And favorite boss fight?
Favorite boss fight. I guess I think I liked the Green Lantern fight.
Yeah.
The Green Lantern fight felt oppressive. It felt like there was that green stuff was constantly closing in on you. I liked that. I thought it was cool. Yeah,
me too. And the same because he was shooting crap at you. The helicopters were coming in, and then on the last phase, he spawns all of them mines everywhere,
dude.
So you can barely go anywhere. That was. I think the spectacle of the Batman fight was my favorite. Just such a cool, like just him being a hulking giant, just absolutely.
It was like a Diablo boss.
Yeah,
it was crazy. Yeah.
And because I think it was cool that like the other 3 bosses were like, you have this target to shoot, but then the Batman one, because they. Even though Superman is he is the superhero and he's the most powerful, the game really builds up as like, we are so afraid of Batman. They're not really afraid of Green Lantern. They're not really afraid of Flash. They're obviously afraid of Superman, but then when they're talking about Batman, they're just crapping themselves the whole time anytime they mention him. And I think...
I will say, I thought the Superman boss was hard. And I appreciated that. I think I actually died during the Superman boss, and I was like, oh dang, dude, okay, all right, I'm watching you, Superman. That's fine, because he is fast and he is strong, which is cool. The boss fights are not as bad as people say.
No,
they're just not.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah. They're good to very good.
Yeah,
I don't think any of them are bad. So
me neither.
And who's your favorite, like, of the supporting characters in the game?
Ooh. I like Hero. The toy man.
Yeah, he is kind of cool,
Yeah, he's cool. I love his area in the hub, in the Hall of Justice, how it's like got all the posters of the superheroes and all that stuff. He's kind of a cool character in the comics too, so I really like him, but they're all pretty good, I'd say. I think the Poison Ivy choice, now having seen it through, I don't quite understand.
I think Poison Ivy is my favorite, and I think she comes across as a Tiny Tina kind of character.
Yeah,
where they were like, we want this kind of unhinged young girl that kind of says stuff that kind of catch you off guard, and she reminded me of Tiny Tina, so that's why she was my favorite.
I do wonder if part of this is like a narrative trick that they're doing, where in a future season they'll like age her up or something, because that is something that they have done before. Yeah,
it would be cool. Yeah.
So I don't know.
And just before we go, do you like somebody who knows stuff about DC?
Oh, sure.
Are the Justice League dead?
No, definitely not. No, absolutely not. I can think of 24 ways that they are not dead. They're not dead.
Okay. Yeah. And was that Batman definitely the Batman?
It could be, and it could not be.
Okay.
I think that there's a way out of it if it is, and I think there's a way out of it if he's not.
Okay.
Yeah, my right now I would say no. I would say that if I had to put some money down, I would say that all these people were clones. I would say that they were all fake-azoids, and you've got Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, you've got all these people in pods somewhere. Like we already know that we are infusing these powers to the little grunts, to Brainiac grunts. So I feel like the leap is right there to be like, oh, okay, yeah, we made some clones, we gave them their powers.
Yeah, so they're actually up in Brainiac's brain, like spaceship and
skull ship or whatever it is. Yeah. And because we're actually told that the Brainiac that is invading our Earth is not our Earth's Brainiac. So like, what's our Earth's Brainiac doing? You know, I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways that you can kind of twist and turn, because did any of the other Brainiacs get their Justice League members? It can't just be ours. Maybe those were never ours. Maybe those, there's too much. There's too much here. There's too many holes. They will come back, and I think it will be cool in the future to see narratively what they do with those characters. I'm also gonna say, I know a lot of people don't like this. At the end of the game, Brainiac reveals himself to be a device instead of a character. He's like, I am the end game device, and I'm now the Brainiac version of the Flash fight. So like a harder tier of the Flash boss fight. I actually think that's all right. I think that's okay. I look forward to the Brainiac version of Green Lantern and Superman. I think that'll be cool. I don't know. Maybe I'm squad pilled, but
I just think that's a well, I wouldn't exactly call it clever, because it's probably fairly easy for anybody to realize they could have done that. If maybe, but like it's a clever way to bring a very live service type of gameplay into a story and make it make sense.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because because like these games are all about repeatable content, repeatable boss fights, and if we just kill off Superman, Batman, and all of the Justice League, then there's no more boss fights for us to do, and all of a sudden we're just doing 4 different types of missions instead of fighting the bosses. So I think it makes sense. Even to be honest, even if they didn't have a narrative reason for it, I wouldn't care. Like if it was just like, oh, you can now repeat the boss fights, it's like, okay, I don't care. It's an action RPG, it's a looter shooter, just let me repeat the boss fights.
But the fact that they get all purple and brainiac-y, and it's like, yeah, that's like enough for me. That's enough for me to go, okay, this is like I see the threat level rise. Yeah. And yeah, so I don't know. Sorry to derail your little question period here.
No, they were the only questions I have. Usually I write them down as I go along, but this time I just went off the cuff. So I think.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say, Jake?
I just really like this game, and I think that like it's more than any other game in recent memory. It's hard to talk about what it is without talking about what it isn't. Yeah. And I almost wonder if it just like came out at a weird time and like all these extraneous forces on it. But I don't want to belabor the point. I've talked a lot already on this. But I think the important thing for me is that I'm not trying to tell anybody that they should like this game. I'm trying to tell you that I really like this game. Yeah. And that's it. That's
yeah. I'm in the same boat, and I'm in the same boat with a lot of games like that where like I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to play this game.
Yeah.
But also, don't be one of them people that are like, this game sucks because someone on the internet said it sucks.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah, just be okay in saying I don't know, and then either play the game and make your mind up, or just move on.
And not to be a weirdo, but some of the discourse about like the things that people are criticizing it for, where it's like, oh, it's so repetitive. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I was watching a review where somebody was like, in the Batman Arkham games, I had the choice of whether I was going to rush in and beat everybody up or stealth kill everybody. And I'm like, that's just not true. That's not how those missions worked. Like, you can go back. There are Predator missions and there are fight missions. If you try in a mission where you're supposed to stealth to just fight everybody, they will shoot and kill you.
Yep.
Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. I think that there's some, like, it's been almost a decade since the last Batman Arkham game, and people are just, like, in their feelings about it for whatever reason. So, yeah, it's a whole can of worms.
Well, thank you, Jake. Everybody,
I guess.
Follow Jake. He's on YouTube at Jake Steinberg. He has a Patreon. He does a weekly show. His first episode was on Suicide Squad. When's your next episode out?
My next episode is out on Thursday of this week, so probably soon after people are watching this video.
So it's either Thursday, 2 days. I don't know if this is going up tonight. Probably not, but it'll be up Wednesday, which means Jake's new episode is out the following day. So go follow him and all that. His link will be in the description. So I will see you all on the next video. Subscribe and whatever you want. I don't care. Goodbye.
Goodbye.